We're going to spend the next 9 minutes learning how to download net migration rate data from the UN World Population Prospects website and creating a line graph from some of the data. To start with, you would go to the, there we go, World Population Prospects 2012 revision. Over here, fertility, mortality, and migration. We're going to do rate. We could do net number of migrants, but I find that the actual number of migrants is not always very helpful in making comparisons between countries. Instead, a rate at least allows us to see this expressed as the average annual net number of migrants per thousand population. This tells us how it was calculated, although I suspect some of these net migration rates were actually calculated using a combination of knowing the immigrant and emigrant data and using the demographic equation. But neither here nor there. Click on that. I'm going to open this up in Excel. And here we go. First thing that I do is I come and make myself a new workbook. That way I can, let me enable editing. That way I can copy this and then paste it into my new workbook. And then if I foul something up, I can always just come back over here. Here's your suggested citation, but I'm actually going to suggest it's not DVD edition. That's an error on their part here because they just copy and paste it over. Instead, that's where URL would go. Once you've done that, you don't need any of this stuff. That's all just in the way. In my version of Excel, I can come up here and click delete. This little graphic still stays behind. Click it, hit delete on your keyboard. And there we go. Other things we don't need. We don't need index and variant. Delete. We don't need the notes and country code. Delete. We're creating a table in order to create a line graph, so we're not making a presentation quality table. But at this point, I'm going to copy the entire thing again by clicking in that upper corner, Control C or Command C, depending on your computer type. Click in that corner, Control V. Again, this is so that I can just come back to here and keep pulling data. We're going to make a line graph that uses just regions of the world by development level. So I don't need any of this. I'm going to delete all of this. Just highlight it all. Again, on mine, it's in my ribbon up here. Yours may not be. You may have to look for it. All right. The UN divides the world up into more developed regions and less developed regions. It divides less developed regions up into the least developed and the less developed, not including the least developed. It also will show you less developed excluding China because China is such a strong influence on the rest of the data in the less developed nations. I've decided not to use that, and I've decided I don't need both less developed regions and the least and the other less developed. I'm actually going to delete that, and then I'm going to reorder this by cutting, Control X, and pasting, Control V, deleting my extra area there. Now I've got my more developed regions, my less developed, and my least developed in mutually exclusive categories. I'm going to get rid of that because it's going to foul up my legend. I could get rid of the word regions too if I wanted to. I'm going to get rid of that because it's not accurate and it'll slightly mess up or make it more difficult for my lines to plot out correctly. And I don't need world because that's always going to be 0 for net migration. All right, I am ready now to make a line graph. However, before I do so, I want to show you how to get these with at least one decimal level because we can't really see much what's going on here. The UN uses a strange method for formatting its numbers. There's another number that lives behind that, 0.213, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But if I were to just simply come here, let's see, highlight those, and expand my decimal level, look, it looks a little odd, those odd little spaces there. I have no idea what they're about. It's the weird formatting that UN has decided to use. So I'm going to come here to my number formatting. This may be somewhere else for you in your version of Excel. We are looking for something that looks like this, format cells. I'm going to change it from custom numbering to just regular old number with 1 decimal level. There. Very readable, and we can now tell that these are not zeros. They actually have some quantity to them, as you can see. Now I'm ready to make my line graph. Highlight all that. In mine, I go Insert, Line, choose my line. Okay, number of things I need to do here. One, I need to make this a little bit bigger. It can go about that big and still paste quite nicely into a Word document. I'm going to use my standard format up there so that I've got a title block and an axis block. And then I need to get this down there. The reason it's here is because by default the axis sits right below the axis labels sit right below the 0 on the axis. I'm going to right click, or I could command click on a Mac. I'm looking for format axis. It might be a little different on your version of Excel, but you're looking for format axis. Axis options, axis labels. Instead of being next to axis, we want it low. And there it is. It's right down there. Close. There are other things that I could do here. For example, I could decide to place some tick marks along the axis so that we can line things up a little better. There's just a wide variety of things that I could do. I'm not actually going to do any of them. I am, however, going to move this legend to beneath because I like them better underneath when I'm showing a very long horizontal graph. So move that to bottom. All right, when I did that, it moved these to look like that. They actually don't, they line up fine now, but there's a little, not quite enough space in there, in my opinion. So I'm going to right click on that axis, format axis, alignment, and I'm going to place these at a custom angle of -45. And there we go. Now I'm back to having those, which they're easy enough to read, make good sense. Okay, let's spread this out. Grab that corner, spread that out a little more. There, very nice looking. I need to go in and change my axis title, my chart title obviously. And the other thing that I need to do is make these more printable in black and white. I'm not going to run through every single thing here, or I might. Let's see here. Format data series. I'm not going to use markers, and the reason for that is it's the default markers. If you just chose marker when you went to insert a line graph and you chose one that had markers on it, they're too big. They clog things up, they get in the way of where lines overlap, and they're not always very attractive looking. I prefer to work with line style, and in this case I'm going to dash this top one, and then I'm going to do line color, and I'm going to make it black. Close. There we go. Move on to the next one, right click, format data series, line style. This one I am going to do fat dash, and I'm going to change the color to something that's more like a dark gray. All right, and then next up is going to be this one down here, format data series. I'm going to leave it solid, but I'm going to change its color to a paler gray. There, that'll print nicely in black and white. You'll be able to read it and see the difference. And what we can see is that over time, our more developed regions have slowly had an increase in their net migration rate, ranging from right around 0 up to just under 3 net migrants per 1,000. In our least developed countries, we are almost always below 0, sending out more migrants than they are receiving in, with the exception of 1990 to 1995. I honestly don't know what's happening there. I think I would need to look through all those least developed countries and find which countries that was impacting. And here we are with our lesser developed, but not the least, which is hovering also just below 0. And that is how I would create a nice looking line graph. Practice this. You don't have to do it for an assignment, but you will have to do it on a test, so you'll need to be able to do everything we just did in under 15 minutes. I did it in under 15 minutes. I think that you'll be able